Hi Pitter Potter Painters. Today I'm going to paint a canvas called Beach This Way. It's perfect for summer. I hope you'll join me. Let's have some fun. We're going to mix 1 part of raw sienna, that just means 1 squirt, with 2 parts titanium white and start with the sand. So I'm just going to put about twice as much white down as I squirted raw sienna. Give or take, we don't have to be precise. So that my palette looks something like this. And then I'm going to mix it with my brush pretty well, but I am not by any stretch looking for perfection here. And I'm just going to start so you can see I've got, it's basically mixed, right? I've still got some dark spots and still got some light spots, but by and large, it's great. So I'm going to start by painting in, see how pretty of a sandy color is that? I just want to make some dunes. Your brush strokes will show here, so you definitely want to go with the direction the sand will be flowing. I just want to fill in that sand. See how pretty and smooth that wet paint is coming together? Really, really like this. Now I'm just going to shade the sides of these 2 dunes here. And don't be afraid to kind of go all over with this. The more you work it in, the more it'll blend and it'll just start to look really seamless, which is pretty fantastic. And then we want to come back with a little more white. So now I'm going to take some more white and add to my original mixture, and this will be the highlights for the sand. See, it comes together pretty quick. The sand only takes about a minute to put together. And then we will move on to other fun things. This is just it's a quick, easy, fun summer design. It's great to put in your home, to decorate for the season. Great to put in a beach house. I wish I had a beach house. I would love to have a beach house. Look how pretty that is. Look at that. That just really looks like the sun shining on the top of that dune. That is pretty cool. The key here, though, is that I'm working in completely wet paint. It's blending so pretty because I'm going fast. If you can't, for whatever reason, if you get interrupted or for some reason your paint dries before you can blend it, spray your canvas with a little bit of water. Just a little bit, super light misting, but that will help it to stay moist, make it easier to blend. Look how pretty. Just nice rocking back and forth kind of motions. I'm using the 3/4 flat brush here, and I'm not, you know how your 3/4 flat brush has two sides, right? It has the wide side and then it has the narrow side. When I'm blending, I use the narrow side and I just rock it back and forth. It makes those nice, super pretty lines. So this is about where we're going to leave the sand and let to dry. I just want to add a little bit more contrast here. I'm sorry. Now that we have the sand finished, highlighted and shaded, we're going to move into the water. And for that, we'll start with some phthalo blue. As we move through it, though, we will mix in some more of our titanium white and raw sienna that we used in the sand color as well. So we'll still be working in these three same colors. So let's go ahead and get started. Because the beach ocean water always comes in waves, what we want to do is start at the very farthest back, the horizon line, with just straight phthalo blue. And just paint as smooth and straight a line as you can. Don't worry if you mess up here, because we will go back and paint the sky after we're finished with the water. But just as smooth as you can, paint a straight horizon line. Like this. This is going to be our darkest blue right here. Then as we come down, we'll come down in sections. We won't go all the way to the beach. We're only going to come down to about here for right now in this particular shade of blue. And don't be terribly concerned with the shape that it comes down, because we will have sections of sea foam, that white frothy sea foam that you know, also comes in waves, and that is going to kind of blend and mask our water sections. So just kind of give it a nice pretty fill in here. I do already have my beach signs sketched in, pencil sketched in here, so that's what I'm painting around. I don't want to get this beautiful deep dark blue inside my signs, because covering it up will be really difficult to do. Now, if you do happen to get some dark blue into where your beach signs will go, don't fret. The best thing to do is to get a wet paper towel, just a plain old paper towel, and get it wet. So we've got a paper towel. I'm going to get it wet in my water. Always have water and paper towels on hand. So I have a wet paper towel here. And normally I wouldn't even bother with this, but I'm showing you guys. So you've got it rolled into a point there. And then I'm just going to take my thumb and almost like, if you've ever gotten your nails done, what the little, what they do if they get out of the lines, they just take their thumbnail and run it right over the spot. And that cleans it up enough that when you go back to paint over it, it covers completely the first time, and you don't have to worry so much about coverage. So we're just going to keep moving along, and I'm going to move my paper towels back again too. And then just keep going with the water. I'm just going to bring it right between these two signs here. So basically even but wavy. Just going to mix that up kind of loose, but I want a nice medium blue. And we're going to paint that on the section right about here. Okay, so just kind of in here. Now, see, this is why, right here. Don't get too much paint on your brush or it's liable to drip like that. Let me just get my wet paper towel and we'll clean. And just try as best as you can to mirror the first section. So where you have a wave coming down here, you want a wave coming down here, and so on, so that it looks like everything is coming down in waves. Because you know the water doesn't come in all uniformly everywhere. And then we're just going to come back and start to stipple this area, because there's going to be sea foam. And that sea foam will get stippled as well. It helps to make it look like it's coming in waves. Be sure you get good, even coverage everywhere. That may mean that you need to get more than one coat, and that's okay. Just keep going with it until you get good, even coverage everywhere. I'm just going to pull it that. Not to be about that much. There is no right or wrong answer with these sections. You can make them however you like. So if you change your mind midstream and you decide you want to make it bigger or smaller, that is totally up to you. So you can see the difference between the super dark blue here in the back and this middle blue here. As we get closer to the beach, we're going to go even lighter. So I'm going to add even more white. And I have on my palette here just left the white and the blue unmixed in a lot of places so that I can adjust the concentration as I need to. So I am going to actually just dip my blue brush into the white at this point, and I'm going to paint the closest section. So what I wind up with is this really pretty, blue here. Super light blue. And this is actually going to be fairly quick to do. Again, just lay your blue down first, and then we'll go back and stipple to add texture. Don't forget that we'll be adding the sea foam, so that's going to blend a lot of these seams. Trying to decide how I want this to look. We'll go something more like this. There we go. now I've made a wash out of that same color, the lightest blue color, and I want to make the water that's closest to us appear to be transparent. So I'm just gonna bring it right up to the edge here and blend it in. And you can see that it's really, really thin. This is about 1 part paint to 1 part water. So it's very, very thin. But what it's gonna do once we get the white sea foam going is it's gonna make it look like you can actually just look right through the sea foam into the water and then through the water onto the sand. So that's really, really nice. It makes a great effect. Now, because it's so thin, I can see it's trying to start dripping, and that would be unacceptable. So I'm flipping my canvas upside down for just a minute to bring that watery paint back to where it's supposed to go. Just gonna keep that going. Look how it blends so pretty into the water section that's right before it. I love that. Pull it over here too. Ah, see, it's trying to do it again. I'm gonna pull it down. Okay. And keep going. Right along that beach edge. Thin paint is so much fun, and for the most part so easy to work with because it blends so nicely. But what this does is it just lays a really nice foundation for the sea foam closest to the beach. Now I'm going to take a good sized dollop of white and add it to that water wash that we did at the last step and use that to stipple on the sea foam. I'm going to take kind of a small brush, about yay size. This one is a number 6. And I'm just going to blend a little bit of that white into that transparent watercolor that we made, but by and large this is really mostly white. Okay, and we're going to start back in the back here and start laying down that color. The back water, the water in the very, closest to the horizon line will be the driest as well, so that will be the easiest to lay the sea foam down over the top of. But as we get closer, the water that's closer to us will also be dry, so that will work out just fine. This isn't exactly white. It's really a nice, pretty seafoam green color. And we're just laying down, getting some thin spots, so I'm going to lay it down like this and go back and stipple over the top, because I really want great coverage here. So if you can see, I think it's easier to bring the canvas. It's just a nice, beautiful light green color, and this is just the first layer. We'll do probably 3 layers total of the sea foam to give it a nice, pretty texture. For the sky, we're just going to take a little bit of cobalt blue and stipple on the blue around the top and the sides to get started, and then we'll let it gradually work its way lighter as we get closer to the horizon line here. So let me show you how we do that. I'm using my 3/4 flat brush again. We use that for the sand as well. Just going to dip it straight into my cobalt blue. And instead of sweeping in broad strokes, we're going to stipple. So I want to unload a good amount of the paint that's on my brush until it's full, but you know, not overloaded. And we're just going to start pouncing on this canvas around the top and the sides. You get a beautiful lace effect when you do this. And you don't even really have to work for it. You just get that really lovely bright blue sky. And we want it to be bluer around the edges and lighter as we look straight forward. So I'm starting around the perimeter of the canvas, along the top and the sides, and then as we work our way toward the center of the sky, I will gradually let my brush run out of paint. But notice I'm not sweeping. I'm just gradually, I'm bouncing with my brush, and I will just gradually let it run out of paint as I get closer to the middle here. Don't feel like you have to cover every part of this. Okay, we want that lacy effect. That's part of what makes it look so pretty. So I'm just going to get my brush a little wetter. I want nice thin cobalt blue. I'm going to rub most of it back off. Start again at the edge. Always start at the edge because you want the edge to be the most intense, and then work your way toward the center as you start to run out of paint. Now my paint here is watered down so that it has the texture, the consistency of ink, which is fantastic. Super easy to paint this way, so I prefer it. But I just want you to see how I'm gradually letting my brush run out of paint. And that's what you want. I just wanted to, so I did. And that is your background. We are completely finished with the background at this point. Now we get to work on the foreground. So we'll work on the dunes a little bit more next. We'll add some seagrass and paint in the wood for the signs. And then our final step will, of course, be to write on the signs. We're about halfway finished at this point. Now that our sky, our ocean, and our sand are just about finished, we're ready to go ahead and paint the post and add a little deeper shading on the dunes. So I'm mixing together about equal parts. I put a little too much white on my palette, but I'm going to mix together equal parts of burnt umber and titanium white to create the base brown color. And for this, I'll use my number 12, which is this one, my number 12 brush. That'll be just the right size for painting the post. And I can do a little detail work in this size brush too, but I'll switch to a smaller brush as soon as I get finished with the post. So here we go. We're just gonna lay down, and that's too much paint on my brush. You don't want very much paint on your brush, just enough to do the job, no more. Just gonna paint in straight lines, straight down. Just want to give it a good coating. I'm going to brace my hand with my pinky here and trace the bottom of my post, which isn't exactly straight. That's why I'm tracing it here. You know, it's supposed to be slightly buried in the sand dune that has flowed up over it, so it's going to be a little curvy right there. And I love this color because it looks like old wood. You know, it looks like it's wood that has been bleached and aged in the sun, as everything that's on the beach does. Now I'll switch to a smaller detail brush with just some pure burnt umber, which is the deepest, darkest form of that color, just the dark brown here. We'll move into detail work. So I want to start adding a wood grain to the signpost. For that, I'll outline, and then this is the fun part because you get to add, you know, curlicues and knots to the wood. There's no wrong answer here. Just any kind of detail work that you like works. There. All right, and we want to go back and add some wood grain to the long part of this post here. Again, no wrong answers, however you want it to look. Wood grain is a beautiful abstraction. And then if you want to put some dark spots in the sand, you can do that too. We'll go ahead and rinse out our detail brush, and now I want to mix just a smidge of Mars Black with that extra white that I had on my palette there. That will be the gray for the, I really put too much black on my palette. I don't need much at all, but just want to take a smidge of the black I put down and mix it into the white, so that I get a nice pretty light gray. And I'm going to paint the signs, the background of the signs with this dark, or light gray, I mean. I want it to be a light gray. Remember, it's bleached out, it's been in the sun for a while. Everything has that lightness to it. So I have about a number 6 in my hand. I'm just gonna give everything a good coating. I could actually switch to a 12 here because I have so much space to cover, and I may do that. I may come back to the 6 for the detail work. Let me see where I laid my 12. Here we go. All right, so a little bigger. I heard someone say once, always use the largest brush you can for the job. I'm not sure that I fully agree with it, but most of the time that's a good rule to follow. So I'm going to switch back to that smaller brush that I was using before, this one, and just mix a little more black into my mixture. Just bring it down a little bit. And then I want to outline my signs, and I want to add a little texture to them. So now that I have a deeper gray, I'm just going to add a little texture and shading. I just have some green oxide on my palette, just straight green oxide. I want to add a base layer. The grass actually has several layers to it, but the green oxide, you know, gives you that vibrant base color to start with. So I'm just going to add some kind of in upward strokes all around the sign, over here on this other dune as well. Give it a good, healthy base layer. Now we're going to add a little bit of a darker green, some phthalo green, to the situation. We'll mix it with the green oxide just a little bit, you know, a nice loose mixture so that you still see both colors, and keep going. Makes for a nice pretty green, but you can definitely tell the difference there. Gives you almost a shadow, but it's got a brightness to it too. Those upward strokes are so important because in the end, they'll be what gives us the texture for the grass. Now I want to come back with a little more raw sienna and put some brown in there. Just a little sandy color, maybe some sea oats. You know, basically this is the older, more mature grass that's already gone to seed. So I want to make them taller. Not terribly many of them, but you know, a few. And then to make the seed pod at the top, you want to do short, quick strokes. So you want to start at kind of the top of where your stem leaves off. Make sure you have kind of a dry brush. And then if you can see my hand here, we're just gonna make little seed pods here with these short, quick strokes. We'll have to go over those a couple of times to get good coverage, but they'll show up in a couple of layers. I'm going to add a little bit of white to this mixture next and add some highlights to this. And this is just that raw sienna color mixed with the grass mixture that we already had. So that we get some cute little seed pods there. And now I'm going to add a little bit of white, which I think I have some extra from my previous paint palette. So I'm just going to take a dollop and mix it in here. And then ever so gingerly, ever so lightly, kind of trim these with some highlights. Bring them in. And that just makes them pop. So you can see them better. So this is where we are with the grass right now. Now I want to come back with some shorter grass too. So I'm going to add some of this brown, some of my dark brown from before. Just going to take a dollop of that, mix it into my grass mixture over here. And add a few short stubs. You know, just ones that just didn't quite make it. Died in the heat of the sun. Just gonna do some fill-in work here. Just gives it a little depth. All right, so there we have the seagrass. We're going to rinse our brush and we'll move forward onto the signs next. This is the last stage in the painting, so congratulations for getting this far. We are going to label our signpost now, and we have two options. We can either use a marker or we can use our black paint with a small detail brush. I'll show you both so you can decide for yourself. The top sign here will say pier. That's only 4 letters, so I'll do it with my brush. Down here at the bottom, it'll say fishing dock, which has quite a few letters. So I'm going to use the marker for that one just to show you. So let's start with just some of that Mars black that I had from before. Now, if you'd like to start in pencil, you can absolutely do that if the idea of painting straight onto your canvas with a word is intimidating. Start with just a plain old school pencil. and you can kind of sketch out your word. Sometimes painting and spelling at the same time can be a little tricky. I have misspelled quite a few words when I was trying to paint, just going straight from painting to right onto the canvas, you know, without planning first. So if you need to write it down in pencil first, I highly recommend it. Don't be afraid. Now, of course, this is going to depend on the brush that you use. Your letters will look different depending on the age, size, and texture of the brush you use, but this brush leaves this really cool rustic look. Nice, big, bold, black letters. So you're going to get an effect that looks something like this from painting the black right onto your canvas. Now for the marker, and again I'm going to spell it out first, fishing dock down here at the bottom. Okay, I'll use the marker so you can see how it looks. This is a little faster, but if your paint is still wet on your canvas, the marker will not work for you quite so well. So that's another thing to consider. If the marker gets caked with wet paint, you'll have to clean off the marker and wait for your canvas to dry before you can write on it with a marker. But there's nothing special about this marker. This is just a Sharpie. There are art markers out there. They are fantastic, but Sharpies work just as well. Now you can see that was quite a bit faster. And you can fill in those letters to make them thicker if you like. But this is the effect from the marker, black paint. So you do get a little bit thicker letter like this, a little bit finer like this, but they both work great. Totally up to you which one you do. Now I'm going to probably switch up between the two. Thicken up any letters that you feel like are too thin. And congratulations! You've finished your painting. Don't forget to sign it. Thank you for joining me painting Beach This Way today. I hope you had fun, and I hope you'll join me for our next Canvas class.